to the Ungovernables, the Captain's Crew, the LFA family, McGroin Nation, coming to you live from the deep red state of Tennessee on rumble.com/LFA TV. Welcome to Ungoverned. Happy Thursday. Last couple days of the month of May. Hard to believe, right? Hard to believe. But it's the last couple days in the month of May. As you know, one of my favorite times of year. You're just 3 days away. Favorite because it's one of my favorite hobbies. Hurricane season, June 1st, Sunday. Also the day that NASCAR comes to Nashville, which is kind of cool. I'm not going to be there. We're not going to be there, but it'll be nice to have them right around the corner. Maybe we'll hear them. Probably not. All right, happy Thursday to everybody, to everyone here. And it's been an interesting last couple of, I would say 12 or so hours. Last night, the Judicial coup continued. Obviously, judges and courts and activists who are wearing robes have decided that they know better than the president and that they have more authority than the president when it comes to tariffs. Interesting. You know, if Congress would maybe show up to work, perhaps we could rein in these activist judges, but they're on another vacation. Another 11-day vacation. 11 days. So nice to know that our public servants are just, once again, not serving the public. It's getting real frustrating, these people. Real frustrating. So you have that. You have Elon Musk. That there have been a little bit of, I want to clarify what happened with Elon Musk. Elon Musk did not quit Doge. Elon Musk did not quit working for the government. He was a special government employee, which is why he did not have to go through the Senate confirmation process. His time as head of Doge was always supposed to end 130 days. We knew it was going to come in May. After he started, 130 days. Yesterday was that point, and Elon Musk has departed the role. I saw people saying yesterday, oh my gosh, Elon Musk quit. I saw the fake news, too. I think I had a fake news email here. The bromance between Trump and Elon is over. It has nothing to do with the bromance. Yeah, I know that Elon is not necessarily, I know that Elon is not necessarily excited with the levels of spending in the big, beautiful bill. None of us really are. But it's not that he quit or walked out or anything like that. His time was supposed to come to an end at the end of May. It's the end of May. His time has come to an end, right? So that's it in terms of, his work with the government. Now, there are things I trust Elon on. There are things I don't trust Elon on. I think his work with Doge was excellent. I think it was much needed, and Congress would be foolish, which, is synonymous with the word Congress, I guess. Congress would be foolish if we don't get at least some of those Doge cuts passed. Now, the big, beautiful bill only addresses mandatory spending. Some of what we want cut because of Doge is discretionary spending, meaning non-mandatory. So that has to be approached in a different way. Which is why some, not all, but some of the Doge cuts are not included in the big, beautiful bill. So there's reasons in all this stuff here, right? It's better to understand that, but it's paramount that we understand that Elon Musk did not just quit, throw his hands up and walk out, as some people were making it out to be yesterday. Fake news and uninformed folks on our side of the aisle as well. Elon Musk did not just quit and walk out on Donald Trump because Congress won't pass the cuts. Elon Musk's time as a special government employee has come to a close at its scheduled end, and we are obviously sad to see that time come to a close. But Doge is going to continue. I believe the department will remain, and they will continue to try to uncover waste, fraud, and abuse, and of course, make government operate more efficiently, which is something that government just inherently has a tough time doing. This is why they're ending production of the penny, right? Because it costs, I think, 4 cents to mint every 1 cent. I mean, talk about waste and inefficiency. Now, according to some people I heard, it also costs more than 5 cents to mint a nickel. The only thing I'm worried about there is that it may take us out of cash. It make us a cashless society, which we don't want. Definitely don't want. But there's always Bitcoin. There's always Bitcoin. All right, we got that. We're going to get into the courts. We have an update on the Epstein thing. And I don't know, maybe I should warm up another pot of tea so I can serve up some nice, warm, tall glasses of I told you so. Not that anybody really here disputed what I was saying. And I want to draw, when we get to this, I want to draw a distinction between two different things, right? And this happened yesterday with this Thomas Massie situation also, which we'll use as a comparison. I don't want any, when I say, for instance, because I criticized Thomas Massie yesterday on X for basically implying that everybody who opposes him is paid to do so. You know, I hate that. I had people from all over the place accusing me of taking money from everybody and their mother. And it's because I have a different opinion. You must be in on it. Or I have a different opinion. I'm not denying the fact that social media influencers are paid to promote certain things or post certain things or push certain campaigns or push certain candidates. I'm not denying that. I'm not one of those people. I have not taken money to promote a social media candidate or campaign on social media. I have not done that. I have worked with folks who have come to me and we've worked on advertisements together for businesses, for products, whether it's using, Trump or we do it here on the show, right? Where there's an ad read that we run. I'm not saying that doesn't exist. And I'm not saying that there aren't quote unquote influencers. We saw what happened with the soda thing not too long ago where that type of thing was going on. People think that when I criticize Thomas Massie for suggesting that everybody who opposes him is paid to do so, they're like, well, what do you do? You don't think influencers are getting paid? When did I say that? Again, what I post is very, very clear. Don't put words in my mouth, right? So I'm not suggesting that there aren't people who are on the take to push campaigns. I know people who do it, and I don't necessarily have a problem with them doing it as long as they are abiding by requirements that are already in place. Whether if it's politics, you have some gray area with the Federal Trade Commission, but there's no gray area with the FEC. It is supposed to make mention that this was a paid-for promotion, an advertisement, etc. If it's a product, a brand, a service, etc., the FTC, Section 5 of the FTC Act, makes it a requirement. It's a civil statute that online influencers or whoever it is that's making the post, I don't like that term, but online, folks on social media, if you're promoting a brand, a service, something along those lines, you've been paid to do it, you are required by Section 5 of the FTC Act to disclose that. And if you're caught in violation in civil court, you can be fined up to $50,000 per violation. Okay? I'm not denying that people abuse that. I'm not saying that. I mean, of course, I know it happens. I've seen it happen. My point when I criticized Massie was he's talking about there should be a requirement. There already is a requirement. I said it was grandstanding. It's not grandstanding. People do it all the time. I didn't say people don't do it. I said Thomas Massie was arguing for a requirement that is already in place. If he really wants to, quote unquote, expose the grifters on social media, then he should file complaints with the FTC and have those people sued. But he won't do that because he's grandstanding. I happen to agree with some of Thomas Massie's viewpoints. I do not agree with the way he carries himself. And in this case, saying, it's like advocating murder should be illegal. It already is. It already is. You're running around and saying murder should be illegal. You're grandstanding. Murder is already illegal. Okay? So I want to, and we'll get to this in a second, because when I take a different position on some of these issues, or not even a different position, but well, I guess you could say different. It differs from what other people, they're like, oh, well, what do you believe, this? Like it's all or nothing. And it's wrong. And I'll explain to you in a minute with this Epstein stuff, kind of what I mean. Before we do all that, I want to talk to you about our friends over at OFP Farms. You know, they got the Father's Day promotion coming up right now. It's actually going. It's in place right now. Saddle up, folks, for Father's Day at OFP Farms. They've got big news, hot off the farm press. OFP Farms is dishing out a barn load of gift sets to make your dad, your papa, your hubby, your son, your best uncle, or that special father figure in your life feel like a king this Father's Day. Choose from one of the fabulous lineups of beard and bath sets, soap boxes, wellness bundles, and a whole lot more. Round up your orders today, folks. There's not much time left between now and Father's Day. I believe it is on June 15th this year. Time is ticking to get these goodies shipped out to your papa, your daddy. My daddy said, and while we love the Pony Express, now we have to trust the good old USPS to deliver the goods. You know, if they're not ballots, they may not get there on time. So here's the best part about this. You can get a 20% discount off the entire order at ofpfarms.com. Use the promo code Sean, it's SHAWN, for 20% off during the Father's Day promotion. ofpfarms.com, promo code Sean, SHAWN. ofpfarms.com, promo code Sean, SHAWN. It's right there on your screen. ofpfarms.com, promo code SHAWN for 20% off. Soaps like this would look good. Your dad would love them. He'd be smelling like a felon, right, with this outlaw soap. And you know how well they did with their Mother's Day boxes. So it's time to get up there and push those Father's Day boxes out there as well. Best way to support OFP Farms? Go ahead and get your dad a Father's Day gift from ofpfarms.com. All right. I want to get to this because this broke this morning. I think Dan Bongino did an interview on Fox and Friends this morning. And once again, the internet didn't, not the whole internet, but some people didn't hear. And this is why I always preface a lot of what we do on this show is, hey, I may not say what you want me to say, but I will always tell you what I believe is the truth. I've been wrong. I mean, I was thinking about this before. In the 2024 cycle, I was pretty certain that Joe Biden wasn't going to drop out of the race because I didn't think Jill and Joe were going to ever, put their pride aside, so to speak, and get out of the presidential race. After the debate, I will admit, I'd say, maybe now, because that debate was so bad. One thing I was adamant about was that Michelle Obama was never going to run, which I happen to be right about. But I have missed before. I've been wrong before. It's not one of these things where, I have a perfect track record. But this is the point that I'm telling you is when you hear me say something, I'm not saying it because I want clicks or I want views or I'm trying to sensationalize or overblow something. I'm telling you what I believe to be the truth after research, articles, reading them and understanding things and kind of going deeper into issues and how things work. I'm not just going to come out here and tell you everything that, that you want to hear, right? That's because at the end of the day, if I continue to say things that I know people are going to get excited about but aren't true, then eventually people are going to be like, well, he's wrong a lot, and I don't want to lose credibility, right? That's the point. So I always tell you what I believe to be the truth. What I believe to be the truth, right? Sometimes it's not right. Most of the time, I would say we have a pretty good track record, but I tell you what I believe to be true. And I believe right now, this is what I believe, that Dan Bongino is being as honest as possible with the Epstein situation. I get it. There are people who hear an answer coming from Dan Bongino. It's not the answer that they want to hear. He looks like he's speaking like a different guy because he's in a different role. I get it. When you hear things that you don't want to hear, it angers you. It frustrates you. I understand that. But what I've been saying for the last couple of weeks now with regards to the conclusion that Dan and Cash came to over Jeffrey Epstein is that the evidence file, and I want you to pay very close attention to this wording and the language here, the evidence file that they have been given I used this example last week. If this was the evidence file and I went through all the evidence and all the evidence in here says that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. As deputy director of the FBI, I am only allowed to talk about what this says. I'm not running a podcast if I'm deputy director of the FBI. I'm running the FBI. I'm not allowed to publicly speculate and theorize about what's in here or what's not in here. I'm only allowed to talk about what the stuff in here leads me to believe. Now, I don't want you to get confused because some people have gotten confused here with, well, you believe the FBI files? No. I'm not saying that I believe the FBI's files. I'm saying I believe the FBI's files say that Epstein killed himself. That doesn't mean I believe what it's saying is true. I'm telling you what Dan Bongino read. I believe this 100%. What Dan Bongino read says that Epstein killed himself. That's what I'm saying. And he is not allowed to go, well, this document looked phony in public. And I've been saying this for weeks now. He is only allowed to talk about what the evidence file says. That does not mean that I believe the evidence hasn't been tampered with. That does not mean that I believe that Epstein definitely killed himself. That does not mean that I believe that, that we can trust everything coming out of, all the files that are coming from the past FBI. That means I'm telling you that I believe the evidence that those guys have looked at suggests that Epstein killed himself. We can speculate. Is the evidence incomplete? Has evidence been destroyed? Are there too many coincidences here that would make it, suspicious that this was a suicide? We could do that. They can't do that. They are bound by ethics procedures. One of them being the duty of impartiality and objectivity. FBI officials, especially the director and deputy director, can't treat their jobs like a podcast anymore. And I really hope that makes sense. I'm not telling you that I believe the FBI file on Epstein is pristine and perfect and nothing's wrong with it. I'm telling you that file tells those guys that Epstein killed himself, and that's all they're allowed to say. And Dan Bongino said that this morning on Fox and Friends. Watch this.
Those two cases obviously are of significant public interest. I'm just telling you what we see in the file. I just want to be crystal clear on this. I am not asking anyone to believe me. I'm telling you what's there and what isn't.
Right.
There is nothing in the file at this point on the Epstein case, and there's going to be a disclosure on this coming shortly. We are working through there is video. That is something the public does not.
There's video of him killing himself.
No, not the actual act, but the entire MCC Bay, it was only one camera. There's video that when you look at the video, and we will release, that's what's taken a while on this. We are working on cleaning it up to make sure you have an enhanced, and we're going to give the original so you don't think there were any shenanigans. You're going to see there's no one there but him.
Right.
There's just nobody there. So I say to people all the time, if you have a tip, let us know. But there's no DNA, there's no audio, there's no fingerprints, there's no suspects, there's no accomplices, there's no tips, there is nothing. If you have it, I'm happy to see it. There's video clear as day. He's the only person in there and the only person coming out. You can see it.
Now, there you have it, right? What did he say? The evidence in the file. And when he says there's no there, he's not saying that there's no room for, us to question whether or not it was a suicide. What he's saying is the evidence that he's read conclusively tells him that Epstein's death was a suicide based off of what he had in his hands, based off of the video that he was mentioning. And no, not the video of Epstein's cell. He made that clear, but a video of the bay where he was being held. Okay. Could that have been manipulated? Yes. Is he allowed to come out on television and speculate whether somebody manipulated tape without evidence suggesting they manipulated tape? No, he can't do that. He can't do that. What did he say? Because there's a lot of people with a lot of strong opinions on this topic. If you have evidence, and it has to be more than an opinion, and it has to be more than, well, come on, man, what are the chances that this, and this happened all at the same time? That's not evidence that the FBI can look into, right? If you've got concrete evidence that would potentially change his mind and change the composition of the evidence and the conclusion that evidence suggests, you can forward it to the FBI. He's telling you it's not case closed, right? He's telling you if you have extra evidence, he's willing to look at it. That's an open mind, not a closed mind. Now, again, I'm not telling you that I believe in my heart of hearts 100,000 million% that Epstein killed himself. I'm telling you that what Bongino is basically relaying to us is only information that he has access to in the evidence file, right? I understand that on his podcast, he was very speculative about, well, Epstein, did he kill himself? Did he not kill himself? If you believe that, I got a bridge, whatever it was, the language that he used. But he can't do that in this role, right? In other words, he can't say exactly what you want him to say. That's number one. Number two, I have a lot of people. And again, I'm not saying, you can't have opinions here because I don't know how I feel about Epstein. I think it can go either way at this point, okay? I think it can go either way. But I want to just stress one more thing for you, okay? Just one more thing here. There are a lot of people who, while they are trying to support the idea that Epstein was murdered, bring up this autopsy of Jeffrey Epstein. And there was an autopsy done by a doctor that was hired by Epstein's brother that came to this conclusion that Epstein may have been murdered and did not commit suicide. His name is Dr. Michael Baden. He's a forensic pathologist. He was hired by Epstein's brother. He publicly disputed the official ruling, which happens all the time, that Epstein's death was a suicide. After observing the autopsy conducted by New York City's chief medical examiner, Barbara Sampson, Baden stated that certain injuries, specifically fractures in Epstein's neck, were more consistent with homicidal strangulation than with suicide by hanging. But he did not rule it a homicide. He said the injuries were more consistent with homicide than suicide. He did not say this was a homicide. So that's number one. It's a mischaracterization of his own findings. Okay? He did not say that it was a homicide. He raised questions and said this is a bit abnormal, but he did not rule it a homicide. That's number one. Okay? Number two, the same doctor, Michael Baden. I don't know if you know this or not, but it's very, very, it's significant. George Floyd's family commissioned an independent autopsy, and they used the same guy, Dr. Michael Baden. Baden classified George Floyd's death as a homicide, determining that Floyd died from asphyxia due to sustained pressure on his neck and back. So the doctor that we're talking about who said Epstein's death may not have been suicide is the same guy who wants you to believe that George Floyd died because of Derek Chauvin and not because of fentanyl. So we got to be very careful because it's kind of like some guy can't be trusted because of the Floyd, or you have questions about this guy's credibility because of the Floyd autopsy. But then when it's the Epstein autopsy, because it's something that, supports our theory of did he kill himself or did he not kill himself, well, we trust him there. So it's kind of like, well, I trust CNN, but only when they tell me what I want to hear. That's called confirmation bias. That's not called being objective. I'm not saying I'm sold one way or the other. What I'm saying is the autopsy that people like to throw around where the doctor ruled it a homicide. Number one, the doctor did not rule it a homicide. He said the injuries were more consistent with a homicide, but he never officially ruled it a homicide. That's number one. Number two, that same doctor ruled George Floyd's death a homicide, which I think we can all look at now and say, I don't really think he died of homicide here. I'm just putting that out there. I'm not telling you that I believe the FBI's evidence file that's been handed to Bongino and Patel is perfect. I'm not telling you that things aren't missing. I'm not telling you that I 100% believe that Epstein's death was a suicide. I'm telling you that I believe Bongino and Patel when they tell me that what they read suggests that he killed himself. That's what I'm saying. And we have to understand the ethics protocols that they are bound by now that they were not bound by when they were podcasters. They were allowed to publicly speculate. They were allowed to question evidence in the public eye. They can't do that in their current roles. That's not, they'll get removed. And then what? I can't think of a better duo to run the FBI right now than Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, okay? It's been 2.5 months. They're not always going to say what you want to hear. I'm looking forward to this video coming out. We will see. We will see. All right. I want to get to this judicial coup, right? Because that's really what the show is supposed to be, the show is supposed to be about, is this judicial coup. Apparently, judges run the... You know what? We didn't vote for Donald Trump. Nobody voted for Donald Trump for president. I don't know. We voted for judges to run our country. In case you didn't know. Just newsflash here. Breaking news. We don't actually have a president. Everything's got to go through court now. Everything. The U.S. Court of International Trade has blocked Donald Trump's tariffs on the rest of the world. Even though it's well within his power, well within his right. Even though the Senate and the House could not pass any new legislation that would take that power away from Donald Trump. They always say, well, if you want to do that, you don't want these injunctions, you got to pass legislation. Well, now they're passing injunctions when legislation never would have passed in the first place. It died in the Senate. These judges are out of control. I ask this question: where the hell is Congress on the judicial coup? Okay? Congress has the ability to refine judicial scope. It has the ability to rein in the jurisdiction of these district court judges. In this case, this is an international trade court. Congress has the ability to check and balance this obvious tyranny of the judiciary. They're not doing it. They're not working. They're going to work a total of 26 days this summer. 26 days between June, July, and August. 26 days. How many days are there in, let's say average, 3 months, 30 days a month, 90 days. 26 days. I get it. You got weekends off. I get it. 26 out of 90. 26. All right. Well, maybe 26 out of 90 isn't a good, because you got weekends. People get weekends off. Fine. So if you take, 4, 8, 12 weekends times 2, 24 days. So you take 90, you take 24 off of 90. What are you sitting at, 66 days? 90 minus 24, is that 66? It is. 26 out of 66. 26 out of 66. That's unacceptable. That's 40% of the time. They're working 40% of the summer. What? You would think, if you really support Donald Trump's agenda, if you really support the bringing on the golden age of America, you would get in there and make sure that these judges stop standing in the way of the agenda that we, the people, elected you to codify. But what do we get? What do we get? Out of 66 work days this summer, they're going to work 26 of them. What do we get? Everybody, most people in America had Memorial Day off. We honor the fallen. They took the whole freaking week. I know, they worked real hard last week. So hard that Andrew Garbarino fell asleep and missed a vote. They worked real hard last week doing the job that they were elected to do. So they got to take an 11-day vacation. There's not a single day in the month of August that Congress will be in session. Not a single day. That is unacceptable. That means if throughout the month of July, the big, beautiful bill isn't passed through the House and Senate after all of the adjustments that we're going to make, it's not getting passed until September because they've got the whole month off in August. While courts continue to dictate what the president can or can't do with the powers given to him by the Constitution. Congress has the ability. They have the ability to rein in these rogue judges and these crazy courts. They're not doing it. They can't do it now because they're not in session. They're not at work. The U.S. Court of International Trade issued an injunction against the tariffs that Trump had imposed using emergency economic powers. The courts, think about this. This is where these courts have come. This is what these courts are doing. Do we have a fentanyl problem in our country? Yes. We do. We have a fentanyl problem in this country, right? And I think we'd all like it if the fentanyl problem in our country could be, fixed, rectified, eradicated. These courts have gone so far to block enforcement of tariffs that targeted China, Mexico, and Canada early this year as part of Trump's effort to stop the flow of fentanyl into our country. The courts blocked it. They said he can't use tariffs to coax these other countries, China, Mexico, Canada, to stop that deadly drug from coming into our country. These courts are literally making it easier for your kids to die. But where's Congress? 11-day break again. They don't seem to think it's an issue, even though they have the power to clean this up. So you've got these courts now that are not only standing in the way of Donald Trump enacting his agenda, but now they are doing the bidding, right, of communist China, who makes a killing off of fentanyl. They're doing the bidding of these drug lords who, if these injunctions are allowed to stand, will get right back into the game of smuggling drugs into this country because Mexico and Canada aren't going to have to secure their end of the border so they can let all these guys and gals just roam freely because Trump won't be allowed to enact those tariffs to punish them if they're not holding up their end of the bargain. These courts are going to get your kids killed. And they're now doing the bidding of communist China, which highlights a very interesting connection. And I hate to say this, but I think something might be going on in Kentucky. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Maybe I'm not. Mitch McConnell, we know, has ties to communist China. Mitch McConnell, one of the senators from Kentucky. The other senator from Kentucky, who I happen to respect a lot, although recently I'm starting to ask questions, is Rand Paul. Now, Rand Paul had a relationship years ago. I don't know if he still has this relationship with Jeffrey Yass. Jeff Yass, one of the investors in TikTok. Jeff Yass, also a huge donor to Thomas Massie, also from Kentucky. Massie and Rand Paul also opposed the tariffs. Is this CCP influence now bleeding through Kentucky into our Senate? I don't know. And this is not me accusing Rand Paul of doing the bidding of the Communist Party, the Chinese Communist Party. Make no mistake, though, I think our courts absolutely are. A lot of these judges appointed by Democrats, the Democrat Party is compromised by the CCP. And these courts are doing the bidding of the Communist Party, the Chinese Communist Party right now. Period. Not only are they saying Donald Trump can't enact tariffs, the reciprocal tariffs that he announced on Liberation Day, but they're also now saying that he can't even enact tariffs that would essentially push countries like Mexico and Canada to secure their end of the border to keep fentanyl out of our country. They're going to get people killed, these courts. And Congress is asleep at the wheel. Luckily, the Trump administration has already appealed it, and it's likely that it's going to be overturned. But my goodness, The fact that this is happening in the first place, and the fact that Congress, aside from, Andy Ogles and a few others, the fact that Congress has decided that this really doesn't matter, we'll just, let it play out, is disgusting. It's going to get people hurt and killed. All right. We'll take a quick break here. Let's go to the LFA TV store. It's over at lfatv.us, lfatv.us, lfatv.us. I don't think I'm going to be able to bring it up on the screen right away, but I'll get it up there in a second. Folks, Father's Day, as we said, is right around the corner. There's a lot of awesome merch. I'm sure your dads, uncles, sons, husbands, father figures, etc. will love here over at lfatv.us, the LFA TV store. There it is, right there on your screen. Click on that LFA TV store tab right on the top of the screen there. Click on the Visit the Store tab on the right-hand side and take a look at this, right? Take a look at these amazing shirts. You got them. The Made America Great Again shirt, the 4540, that's I like that logo right there. It's a cool shirt. Got the mug, too. I love this mug. And I say for Father's Day, because, Dad probably likes a nice cup of coffee in the morning. Get him this mug. We can reminisce on all the awesome moments of the 2024 campaign cycle. And also pick up some Rise Up coffee while you're at it, right? The best coffee in the game right here, Rise Up Coffee. LFATV.us, LFATV.us, or JeremyHerald.com/store. Awesome Father's Day gift ideas and everything else available for you here on the website, LFATV.us or JeremyHerald.com/store, LFATV.us or JeremyHerald.com/store. All right, time out. Everything making sense so far? Oh, yeah. All right. Very good. We're talking about the border now. We'll move away from these courts and, again, these are the people that the Democrats want to keep in our country. A Mexican illegal alien. And by the way, Stephen Miller, I don't know if you guys caught this, said that ICE is going to try to maintain a goal of 3,000 at minimum arrests per day. 3,000 arrests per day at minimum. Over the course of a year, if we do 3,000 times 365, that's almost 1.1 million illegal aliens arrested every year. Now, that's not enough. Over the course of 4 years, you only get rid of about, 4.5 million illegals. There's 10 to 20 million in the country. But the goal is at minimum 3,000 a day. And this is why. Because you have these people in our country, these illegal aliens in our country. Which, Jerry Nadler. Remember yesterday, Jerry Nadler? Well, if we deport the illegals, our food is going to rot, right? And of course, Jerry Nadler's thinking about food. It's the only thing on his mind. When you look at him, it makes a lot of sense. But Nadler and a lot of Democrats are doing this. Well, if we deport the illegals, who's going to pick our food? Right. Just like the 1860s plantation owner who said, well, if we free the slaves, who's going to pick our cotton? Yeah, that's not racist. Well, if we deport the illegals, maybe we'll get people like this out of our country. A Mexican illegal alien has been arrested for threatening to kill Donald Trump, to shoot him in the head, at a rally. Nice guy. Sure, he's just here looking for a better life, right? Yeah, after all, we know 8647 is no longer, that's just no big deal. It was just a bunch of seashells, according to James Comey. ICE arrested a Mexican illegal alien in Wisconsin who threatened to assassinate Donald Trump. According to Fox News reporter Bill Malugin, who does the second best job on the border. Number one is Ben Bergquam. In a mailed handwritten letter to an ICE agent, 54-year-old Ramon Morales Reyes said he was angry about the deportations of his family members and said he would use his gun to shoot President Trump in the head at a rally. Okay? Look, it's this simple to Ramon Morales, Flores, whatever. Okay? It's this simple for this guy. If you're upset that your family got deported, then perhaps you shouldn't have come into the country illegally. The answer to solving your problems is not to shoot President Trump in the head, okay? And now that everyone knows that you're looking to do that, you're now on the radar, and now you are going to get deported as well, okay? Look, it's really this simple, okay? I have no sympathy for anybody who came into this country illegally and is now being deported. None. Okay? Especially people like this guy who is so upset about possibly getting deported and so upset that his illegal alien family got deported that he wants to kill the president. I have no sympathy for anybody who came into this country illegally. You knew what you were doing. You broke and entered. Okay? You're not supposed to be here. You need to leave. If you don't leave on your own accord, someone's going to find you and someone's going to make you leave. You're not going to get any sympathy from me. Oh, but what if they have to go back to their home country where they're feeling, political persecution? That's fine. You can file for asylum, but you can't file for asylum there and apply for asylum and then just live here illegally and skip court dates and disobey the law and leech off of the system and undercut people's employment. No, you can't do that. Sorry. And not every person who entered this country illegally is somebody who is legitimately asking for asylum, right? They're using that as their justification. But the reason why they're coming here is because they were getting free housing, free phones, free food, free healthcare, free transportation, right? They weren't coming, not all of them were coming here to find a better life. And that's not even an excuse. I can't go rob a bank and say the reason I robbed the bank is because I needed more money for a better life. I can't do that. They're robbing our country blind. No sympathy for anybody who came into this country illegally. And 100% of those who entered the country illegally are already a criminal. Right? Listen, it's this simple. People go, well, you're not just deporting criminals when you're deporting these illegal aliens. Stop. What do you mean we're not just deporting criminals when we deport the illegal aliens? If you came into this country illegally, you're a criminal. You broke the law when you entered this country. 100% of illegal aliens who entered this country illegally are criminals. 100%. Maybe they're not violent criminals to the extent of some of these Tren de Aragua thugs that we're, catching and deporting. Maybe they're not like MS-13. But that doesn't change the fact that when they came into this country illegally, they committed a crime. And if they did it twice, that's felony reentry. You gotta go. No sympathy. No sympathy. You're not going to get it from me. And they shouldn't get it from anybody else either. I'm not going to sit here and defend people who knowingly and willfully broke our laws to enter our country. Not going to happen. You know who is going to do that? Sandy Cortez. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. We are fighting the oligarchy, man. AOC is running on look, and I'm not going to tell her to stop. Because you never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake. But a lot of Democrats are unhappy, including the Ragin' Cajun, James Carville, lunatic, right? AOC is pushing the abolish ICE message ahead of 2026. That is not a good message. Folks, mass deportations are wildly popular with the American people. So I hope AOC continues to push that message and continues to push that abolish ICE and continues to push that, that version of defund the police. When crime was out of control and the police weren't allowed to do their job, and there's still a lot of places where crime is out of control and the police aren't allowed to do their job, people are very unhappy about that. If AOC wants to run and push this message of abolish ICE, which is essentially, defund the police rebranded, it's not going to fly with independent voters. It just isn't. She's pushing that message. If I was a Democrat strategist, I'd be calling her, Sandy! Get it under control. All right. Did you see the, look, I don't like what Project Veritas did to James O'Keefe. I don't know all the specifics, but what we do on the show is we do credit where credit's due. Yesterday, a video came out that showed the one and only David Hogg, who I support. Stop the steal. I want him in leadership at the DNC. Because I don't like the DNC. And he's a disaster. And I like when my enemies are led by disasters. Okay. Did you see this video of David Hogg that came out yesterday? Where basically he admitted that Jill Biden's chief of staff was essentially running the country. We already knew she ran cabinet meetings. Did you see this video yesterday? If you didn't see it, here it is. David Hogg basically admitting to an undercover journalist that Jill Biden's chief of staff, Anthony Bernal, was essentially running the country from his own mouth. Watch this.
Yes, nice to meet you. Yeah. off the record, of course.
Foundational question for me is like, how corrupt is the DNC if so many people knew, or few people knew about Biden, well, the president of the United States?
I mean, I think the fact of the matter is the DNC is always going to be like a campaign arm of the president, ultimately. The bigger issue was like the inner circle that was around Biden. That's it.
And I can't stress to you enough.
Like Joe Biden's chief of staff, like had an enormous amount of power.
Joe Biden?
Joe Biden's chief of staff.
That was like an open secret at the left. Like, I would avoid him. Like, he was scary.
What was his name?
Anthony Brown.
I've never seen him.
Exactly.
What do you mean?
He's like a shadowy, like, Wizard of Oz type figure. That's what made him so, like, I knew how he looked, but I'm like, the general public wouldn't know how this man looked. But he wielded an enormous amount of power, and I can't stress to you how much power he had at the White House.
Jill Biden's chief of staff, Anthony Bernal, sounds like he was running the country. All right, so let me do this. Right? Let's hypothetically, I don't believe this, but I want to set the stage. Let's hypothetically concede for a second. I know this is going to make people, no, I'm not going to say that. Just wait. Let's hypothetically concede for a second that the 2020 election was completely free and fair and that Donald Trump legitimately lost. Let's concede that for a second for the sake of the rest of the argument, okay? If that's the case, and the 2020 election was completely free and fair and secure and legitimate, and it was a legitimate legal election win for Joe Biden, that would mean, because that's what the left says, that would mean that the American people, right, the country, voted for Joe Biden to be the president of the United States. That would not mean that the American people voted for Jill Biden's chief of staff to be the president of the United States. Or, as reports suggested, Pocahontas, right? Elizabeth Warren, chief spitting bull, right? We don't like her. She's horrible, right? She's a terrible person. She was, according to reports, utilizing the auto pen, right? The American people voted, again, for the sake of the argument, for Joe Biden. Not for any of these other people. That's a coup. That's a complete, that is, look, the Joe Biden cognitive decline, and again, I don't believe that 2020 was stolen. I'm sorry. Whoa. I don't believe that 2020 was fair. I believe 1,000% that it was stolen. Holy moly. Someone's going to take that and run with it. I do not believe that 2020 was fair. For the sake of the argument, I was putting it out there to prove a point. But I do not believe that 2020 was fair. And look, the Biden cognitive decline cover-up more or less proves that 2020 was a sham because they installed a guy that they knew they'd be able to control, Joe Biden. They installed him. People didn't vote for that. But the cognitive decline cover-up was one of the biggest cover-ups, if not the biggest cover-up in American political history. Everybody knew Joe Biden was cooked. Everybody. From 2019, where he started campaigning, talking about his hairy legs, talking about corn pop, right? All this crazy stuff, to while he was president, you know, I no more think of myself as being as old as I am than fly, whatever the hell that means, right? Saying he grew up in a Puerto Rican community. Oh, they called me Joe Bidenopolis. No, they didn't. The brewery thing where he was slurring his words. We think he's drunk. I think he was just losing it. The debate, you know, where everyone all of a sudden wanted you to believe that Joe Biden got dementia overnight. Everybody knew this guy was cooked. We had a literal potato as president of the United States. He wasn't making any decisions. That's a huge story. That is a huge story. The biggest cover-up in American political history. Now we get this from a watchdog group, finding no evidence that Joe Biden knew of any of the climate change executive orders that were signed with the auto pen. This is massive, okay? This is bigger than, I think, bigger than any... Look, the 2020 election cover-up was bad. This is even worse. This took place, and this was as a result of that, but this took place. Did we have a president? Like, Biden was a horrible president, and he would have been a horrible president even if he had it all together. But we didn't even have a guy who knew he was in the office. He didn't even know what he was signing. This needs, look, if there's any investigation that needs to be prioritized right now, take your Epstein files. You can yell and scream and pound your chest about it. This is way more important, especially when it comes to 2026 and going forward, because if this can be thoroughly investigated and we can get names of people who knew and link those names to people who are higher up in the Democrat Party, elected officials, etc., trust in the Democrat Party will be undermined for decades, folks, decades. You may look at it, the independent voters may look at it and go, I don't really like Trump, but I can't trust the people who installed a vegetable as president of the United States and then told us that he wasn't a vegetable, even though they knew he was a vegetable. Huge story here, folks. We got to push like hell to get every bit of information out about the auto pen scandal and the cognitive decline cover-up. It is the biggest cover-up in American political history, bar none. All right, quick break, and then I want to do, I got to touch on a couple of stories here before we go. Some pretty, I'd say significant stuff, but maybe not stuff that everybody would, would care too much about, although I think this audience knows where I stand on a lot of these issues. First, I want to talk to you about Armor Colostrum. It's tryarmor.com/LFA TV, tryarmor.com/LFA TV. Folks, you know I'm always on the lookout for ways to strengthen my immunity and my gut health, improve my fitness and metabolism, and enhance my skin and hair radiance. Well, I have been honored to be sponsored here, our show and our network, by Armor Colostrum. And this product has worked for so many people, including those of us in the chat. And it can do the same for you if you haven't tried it yet. It's the first nutrition you receive in life, colostrum is, and contains all the essential nutrients that our bodies need in order to thrive. It can help you reactivate your hair growth and help your skin glow. It can help fortify your gut health and ignite your metabolism. You can combat bloating. You can feel lighter. It does a lot more than probiotics. It only addresses one part of the 4-part gut wall. Probiotics, most of them are dead by the time they reach your gut, so they don't even work. But colostrum, Armor Colostrum, naturally fortifies your entire gut wall system, optimizing your microbiome and strengthening the gut wall architecture, which guards against irritants that can trigger symptoms like bloating and constipation. For you workout geeks out there, you gym rats, it can help fuel your fitness and performance and recovery. You can get 15% off of your first order at that's TRY, armor.com/LFATV, tryarmor.com/LFATV, tryarmor.com/LFATV for 15% off of your first order. That's TRY, armor.com/LFATV, tryarmor.com/LFATV. Punishers NEC says that clearly doesn't think that the fact that the Democrat Party, the fact that they all knew that Joe Biden installed a vegetable isn't a huge story. I believe it's the biggest story. Yes, I talked about 2020. Yes, 2020 led to the vegetable being installed. I actually just said that. And I know that 2020 was stolen. But what we need to do is we need to go into a story that's going to undermine trust in our opponents and cut them down at their kneecaps. 2020 is not going to do that. The Biden presidency will, and we could do both, and I want answers on both. But I mean, to downplay the fact that they installed somebody as president and for 4 years covered it up until they couldn't anymore and say that's not a big story, I just don't know. I don't know. That seemed like an emotional response more than anything else. All right. Real quick. It's the Jews. It's the Jews. Okay. D.C. shooter Elias Rodriguez, who murdered 2 Israeli diplomats last week, apparently wanted to genocide white people. That's nice. Sounds like a great guy. These Free Palestine people are really great people, huh? These Free Palestine people are really great people, right? Want to genocide white people. That's good. But according to Candace Owens and Myron Gaines and Jake Shields and, several others, yeah, they have a point, Free Palestine, right? They have a point. Interesting. They don't have a point. And these are sick, disgusting people. Now, speaking of sick, disgusting people, yesterday we got some good news out of the United Kingdom, which I don't necessarily like. But the blind squirrel eventually finds a nut. And I believe they found little teeny tiny nuts in this case Andrew and Tristan Tate have been charged in the UK with rape, human trafficking, and several other heinous charges. So they've got cases that are still going, despite the fact that their hack lawyer wants to lie about it, despite the fact that their sycophantic followers want to lie about the cases were dismissed. They're not dismissed. They're under judicial control in Romania. Now they've been charged in the UK, and I have a reasonable level of confidence that both of them will also be charged in the United States as well. I'm happy to see that the sentiment on them has almost completely changed over the last couple of months, and the majority of the folks that I interact with on the internet are no longer asking, don't you think this is politically motivated? I don't think these cases are politically motivated. I don't. Because Andrew and Tristan have been seen on video and in text messages admitting to the things that they're doing. And what they attempted to do is they said, well, they came after Trump and we like Trump. That's why they're coming after us. No, they're coming after you because you beat up a 15-year-old girl on camera and bragged about it. Listen, is there any political motivation in their case? There might be, because they are on the quote-unquote right-wing anti-woke, okay? But that's not something that I'm saying to undermine the charges. The folks that are charging them with what they did on camera are probably motivated to do it because it's going to be an easy case and they don't like them. But what they did is disgusting. And they deserve to go to jail for a very long time. So now they've got cases in Romania and cases in the UK. And I bet you that they're going to wind up with cases here in the United States as well. And they only have themselves to blame. They're the ones who did what they're on camera doing, what they're in text messages doing. And I'm happy to see them go down. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. We got Mo. Thank you so much for, how many do we have? Okay. There we go. We got Mo. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for watching and listening. I appreciate all your support. Be on Newsmax this afternoon around 5:30 with Kay Smythe, Carl Higbee, ready to rock and roll on Newsmax this afternoon. Appreciate everybody's support for watching and listening. Jeremy Harrell coming up next with Live from America for the next 2 hours, 2 straight hours, Live from America, right here on LFA TV, rumble.com/LFA TV. Make sure you give us a follow here on Rumble, and make sure you give us a follow on X at LFA TV US. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. Go search for Ungoverned on any podcasting platform. Hit the subscribe button. It's completely free. It helps us fly up the charts there in audio land as well. Have a great rest of your Thursday. We're back here tomorrow, same time, same place, rumble.com/LFA TV, 10 a.m. Eastern time. We do phone calls second half of the show. Until then, have a great rest of your day. And in the words of John Fetterman, good night, everybody. Bang gavel. We'll see you tomorrow morning.